Hello, I am Walter Chen, the founder and CEO at Sacra. We publish research on private companies. I am here standing in for our good friend Adam. It looks like I can't change the slides. Okay, there we go. Yes, so I am not Adam. Adam, is caught in a tropical storm in the state of Florida, and this is one of the reasons why Florida will never be a startup hub. Because during hurricane season, you have to evacuate your family to higher ground. But at Sacra, we team up with Sandhill for weekly live events. Focus on specific topics of interest to founders, investors, etc. And then at Sandhill, they also send out a kind of weekly, daily-ish email newsletter. So yeah, check out Sandhill and also check out Sacra. Sweet. We have a really exciting panel today. Really cool. Topic is like AI and dev tools. Part of our AI and blank series. And we've got some great guests here. So yeah, let me introduce them. First of all, we got Wei-Wei, who is the founder of Momentic. Momentic is end-to-end testing platform powered by AI. It is they went through YC recently, winter 24 grad, yeah, growing fast, doing really well. And Wei-Wei's background is, he's been in a number of engineering roles, and he previously was a senior software engineer at Density. We also have Nikhil, who's co-founder and CTO at Vapi. Vapi is a API to build voice agents powered by AI. So AI voice agents that can answer the phone, talk on the phone, and do stuff. For example, book restaurant reservations. Very cool product. They actually have a really interesting history, which I'm excited to hear Nikhil talk more about. They started as Superpowered, which was a AI note-taking tool. Cool. So yeah, would love to hear them talk more about it. So yeah, let's bring them out. Oh wait. Okay. Hello.
Hey, Walter.
Hello.
Hello. We got yeah, you guys are in San Francisco, a place that is not prone to hurricanes and tropical storms.
Only microclimates here. We don't get storms.
Good stuff. Sweet. Well, I'd love for you guys to do a little intro for yourselves, do a better intro. Yeah, Wei-Wei, you wanna kick it off?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Wei-Wei. Yeah, one of the co-founders of Momentic. Used to do a lot of open source, like Storybook, Rollup, React, Node.js, and worked on a lot of developer infrastructure. So like one of the most annoying things is testing. So how can we make it better in the age of AI to like accelerate developer teams? So that's why we're building Momentic. I'll hand it over to Nikhil.
Hey, Nikhil. Yeah, co-founder of Vapi. We're building voice AI infrastructure, making it easier for people to deploy voice agents on any surface, phones, websites, apps. And we're really just thinking about like how exciting it is that we're moving towards a world where we can just like talk to our computers, and just excited to play a part in that. And yeah, we are a happy Momentic customer. So good to be on the panel with Wei-Wei. Good to meet you. Likewise with you, Walter.
Sweet. That's good. I like the paying it forward. Nikhil, maybe you could kick it off because this trajectory is I don't know if it's common, but it's an identifiable pattern. First you build like a product, a kind of app layer, AI powered note-taking tool. And maybe, well, that space is very competitive. There are a lot of products in that space. It's also sort of like a feature that so many products, are adding on, whether it's a sales tool or whatever. So then that product still exists, still running, profitable from what I understand. But then you focus to sort of the developer layer. How do I enable any company to build a product like this very quickly? Love to hear you sort of tell the story of that journey.
Sure. Yeah, I guess like what I'm getting from your question is like it's a common move to go from like product to platform. Um, I yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe we followed a stereotype unknowingly. Um, for us, it was like fairly straightforward. Yes, we're powered. People were using it. People liked it. It was profitable. But we're engineers. We're like very technical people, and we couldn't see ourselves like spending 10 more years of our life growing that. There, so it was a hard but like easy decision. Like, okay, let's time to reset. Where we just see like uh, we saw the kind of future, a possible future where basically the next like century or like the next like phase of civilization is going to get built in the next 5 to 10 years. Um, with AI at the cusp of like a lot of things. So it's like in that moment, do I want to be building a note taker or do I want to like build some? Do I want to try to build the core infrastructure for the future? And that was just a motivation of like, okay, we want something a harder challenge that like feels like it's building the future. But I do want to comment, like I don't know if that's true where like AI note taker is a competitive market and like it would have done less in any way less well than what we are doing right now. I like to say I have a common opinion, which is like the TAM is never the market, it's the founder. Like like Zuckerberg like keeps switching fucking around like AI to metaverse. So like it's like no one like you don't see Twitter doing that. I guess like with Jack, right? So the TAM is really the founder and like how they kind of chart a course. So Note Taker, great market, great product as long as you can have a good sales motion. For us, we just wanted to build a different future that we cared about.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that pushback. Yeah, I didn't. Maybe my narrative was a bit overdetermined in terms of one thing being a forcing function for another.
Yeah.
Wei-Wei, I watched your YC application video yesterday, which you shared on shared on Twitter. The vision that you shared in that was maybe a little bit different from what you're building today. Seemed a little less specific around testing and more kind of like open-ended around AI agents. Could you talk about sort of like the dev tools focus when it comes to like and the testing focus when it comes to building with AI?
Yeah, for sure. When we first started Momentic, it was called Screenwriter, and we weren't sure if we were gonna focus on testing or like be a general like browser RPA tool. So like say like competing directly with like UiPath. And we realized after talking with a lot of people that we knew really nothing about general RPA. Other than like Jeff and I are both developers and we knew a lot about testing. So this is like, I think that was like good founder problem fit. Like we both felt the pain critically, like when Jeff was at Retool and Robinhood and when I was at Density and Assembled. So that kind of pushed us towards that direction. It's like, we know our customers really well because we felt that same pain at previous jobs, maintaining and writing Playwright, Cypress scripts, Selenium if you're at a really old company and really like Selenium. I think focusing on the customers that we knew and the problem that we knew like kind of pushed us towards like focusing on the testing part.
Did you also say that you worked on, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Like, did you also mention you worked on Storybook? I didn't know that, but like that, or like you contributed to it. I feel like you were destined to build Momentic because Storybook is like, I can see a clear extension.
Yeah. Storybook, right outside, when I first graduated from university, I dipped my toes into like open source software. So one of the first projects that I contributed to was Storybook. So I helped write some of the plugins, especially around accessibility and some like small components here and there way back in like 2018, 2019. I'm still a member of that organization, though I'm no longer an active contributor. But maybe, you know, in the future, when I have more free time, I'll have more time on open source. But I think, definitely a big fan of open source and giving back to the community, and projects like you know, Storybook, Node, or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear, like, you know, you sort of talk about building a sort of end-to-end testing product versus like browser-based RPA. I'm curious, like, for Nikhil, from your, you know, you talked about building core infrastructure. How do you think about, like, or how did you sort of come to this specific sort of part of the infrastructure and where it sits in the stack, you know, versus say like, you know, a DeepGram or 11 Labs or whatever?
Yeah, a lot of it is definitely like finding a gap, you know, in the market and filling that. Like DeepGram, for example, they've been working on the problem for 8 years, done an excellent job of like solving it. It's not solved, but they're just super good. So, and I think in retrospect, though, I do feel in retrospect, when I see people using it and like kind of commenting on things that they like, it's like, oh yeah, like APIs are my love language, you know, like I like writing APIs and like having good abstractions. And again, the thing I'm thinking with Wei-Wei is like it's like the things that you were contributing to like directly relate very closely to what he's doing in Momentic. So in some ways there is a arc, I guess, to everyone's story. So yeah, we just found ourselves in the space because we were pivoting around after Superpowered. There's a bit of story around like how my co-founder Jordan started building a AI therapist to talk to because we were depressed in the pivot, and realized like, okay, like actually there's two companies here. One is like the AI therapist, and one is like the core infrastructure to make really natural talking AIs. And decided to focus on that because we love developers, we know them well, similar to what Wei-Wei was saying.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. Yeah. Wei-Wei, did like, were there any particular like during the YC experience that kind of illuminated the fact that you know, that this is like the sort of the founder market fit that you were looking for?
I think so. I think during the batch, like once we started focusing on testing, we found like the sales process just to be like a lot easier because we were developers and we were selling to developers. Like we can empathize with them. Like we know them because they were us a couple years back. And I think a core part of that, which I think initially we had some hesitancy about, is like we also deeply understood like what they needed already. And then we further validated, you know, with like more discovery calls, going through the sales process. But I think since we were both already really well versed in the developer infrastructure, like, you know, testing space, we already knew what they wanted. We knew what existing solutions looked like, what were the pain points, and like we were able to like kind of set out and build the solution kind of because we already knew what it looked like. And now we're just like continually iterating on it based on feedback, and, you know, the cycle continues.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, we're here talking about DevTools and developers. So I'd love to hear, you know, there are a lot of, you know, takes thrown out there on what, you know, software development, how it's changing, what it looks like today, and sort of what it's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years. You know, let's say 10 years ago, you know, that's when we learned how to copy and paste, you know, from Stack Overflow, and now we're using you know, Copilot and that kind of thing. Yeah, would just love to open it up and hear what you guys think. Like, yeah, what is software engineering going to look like? What does it look how like from your eyes? How has it changed and it is changing? And then what does it look like, you know, in 5 to 10 years time?
Yeah, happy to share more on like my thoughts on software engineering. I guess especially in the testing space, it's really interesting how things have progressed so far. You'll see large organizations with dedicated orgs for engineering and also dedicated orgs for QA. So when I was at Qualtrics, there was a whole QA engineering organization with a lot of like titles like software developers and test, whose whole jobs was just managing test cases and test rails and writing automation in Selenium or the meta framework that they built on top of Selenium. And I think in the past couple of years, like especially with like more recent up and coming startups, like we were with like Ramp, for example, and a lot of engineering leaders are moving towards consolidating this. So like, why do I need both an engineering org and a QA org when engineering should own this? We see this ownership be better for the engineers themselves. They output higher quality work, and they're accountable to that work because they also own that quality portion, not just the building. Versus like in the old setup, you would see engineers build their features, and then I think the stereotypical way is you build the feature, you kind of do like some ad hoc testing, and then you toss it over the wall to QA, and it's not your responsibility anymore. And that cycle kind of is just like really inefficient, and it adds an unknown amount of cycles to your development time. So like you toss it over to QA, they'll find bugs, they'll toss it back to the engineering team will fix it, and then it just keeps going back and forth. And it's just like a really inefficient process. And like every director of engineering I've talked to in my network or that I'm friends with is like, they would rather die than hire a QA organization. It's just it's just like such a huge source of inefficiency. And we're here to like help engineering orgs be more efficient. Historically, if you're writing Selenium, Cypress, or Playwright, it's just super time consuming. You have to write a lot of code. So like, how can we make that even easier and like enable the engineers to own that full cycle from like development to the quality, and then that just overall benefits everyone.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, let's say take AI powered customer support. There's sort of this like, hey, let's get rid of customer support. It no longer exists. Versus the let's make each customer support agent be able to do a lot more. Or let's say they were doing 50 tickets like a day, and now they're doing 500. And then maybe there's a third that's like, hey, let's get rid of the low level, customer support people. That all the sort of trivial tickets will be closed by AI. And let's give like the high level support people. They'll still exist. In fact, maybe they'll have like a lot more leverage, and they'll be focused on like core relationships with the biggest accounts. Is the story you're telling like, let's like it's in part like, let's get rid of QA, but then like let's like make QA part of engineering? Is it in part like a headcount elimination story? Is that like compelling to buyers, or is it kind of more like there's a headcount elimination, there's like efficiency, there's kind of like code quality in there too, because it's like, hey, when you have to think it through, like when you have to like do the testing yourself, it's going to be better. Which of those is like really the main like thing that's like illuminating it for buyers?
I think for buyers, I would say the main impact, like the bottom line, is always their customers. So then like, if you have better quality of your product because your engineers have more ownership and they're able to ship fixes faster because they're testing themselves, I think that's like the main things that I think we would see. I think that's what most of our customers care about. It's like that efficiency, that you're shortening cycles, you're getting things out there quicker. As an engineer, like say like who had to do this testing ourselves, it's just, I think it's that I love that ownership. I want to be I take pride in the work I do, and I want to ship like the highest quality of work to the customers of our company, whether it's Momentic or wherever. And I want to be enabled to do that. I don't want to have to, toss it over the wall to QA or write a couple thousand lines of, gnarly JavaScript to test it.
Yeah. Nikhil, what are you seeing on your end?
Yeah. I think one thing that was coming to my mind when Wei-Wei was talking about this QA team, given we are infrastructure, I think a lot about reliability, and it's like super hard. You run into like so many things with like Kubernetes or just scaling in general. And yeah, I was talking to like some people. It's like how do people like get to like 5 nines? That's like it seems like a pipe dream right now. And the one thing that I heard was like, yeah, you kind of like organizations that have that kind of priority, you kind of have like one developer to like 2 testers, like 1-to-2 ratio. I was like, that sounds insane. So they definitely want. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's our future. But I can see kind of like how if AIs get better at each of these components, enabling. It's hard to know, right? It's hard to predict historically what AIs will get better at and like what kind of chop away. Kind of the thing that people meant thought it would take robotics, but it didn't. It taking like art. So it's hard for me to say like which pieces of engineering will be able to abstract out. But what I would like is we have a product scope, we have a technical scope, we start making that out, and then like everything from the first draft for it to like writing tests for it to like queuing that, each of those pieces, the more leverage AIs can give a core product team, a core like team that's like focused on delivering value to customers. That's great for the economy and I guess like for companies too, where you can just ship way more code, way more higher quality. That's just a pipe dream, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like software is always sort of about like you know, manifesting pure thought. It's like you have an idea and then you can create it. And it's cool to just to have like more at your disposal.
Yep.
Can you talk to specifically about like APIs? I mean, this is like an open-ended question, but like, hey, how are the ways like we're using APIs changing? Is AI particularly good at stitching together APIs, and therefore like it's great to build API products because that's the way that AI is gonna. It's not gonna like code a thing from the bottom up. It's gonna like stitch together some APIs, and that's a great place to be. But then on the flip, maybe that it kind of like commoditizes APIs in the sense of like now a customer of Vapi, maybe they don't even know they're using Vapi. Maybe it's like their AI developer like found it, signed up, hooked it up, and then but there's no like real customer relationship. How have you seen all that?
I think it's fair, and it's kind of funny where a big thing that we'll talk about, like incumbents, are hard to like uproot because there's a lot of large switching costs. It's a common thing people say. So if what you're saying is true, right? Like, yeah, can truly just like go in, like snipe some particular API, like insert another. Yeah, I think it could definitely there could be more of a rational market around these things, and like might have like turnover pretty heavily, competition moves faster. Hard to predict that for me. Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess like when we're all operating at that level, the basis of competition will shift on something, right? I just don't know what it will shift towards. Uh, it can't be just like people find ways, I think, to like have like price like stickiness, and we have to, otherwise there's going to be just no businesses to be made.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bright future, utopian vision. Wait. You know, one of the things I observed recently with Momentic is like this kind of positioning around like being an AI agent or agents at Momentic specifically. And then also I'm sort of curious about like this idea of like writing code or writing tests with natural language. Do we think like agents and, you know, like let's say writing code with natural language, or maybe some other paradigms like Copilot? I don't know how do we think about like which of these are kind of like durable trends and which of these are just kind of like, you know, hey, like in the near term, like there's some interest around agents, so let's like put some marketing out about agents.
Yeah. I think I would say like the agent positioning is very much like a buzzword. And like if you look at, say, like when people talk about a web agent, like, hey, but go on to Google, look up some restaurant and book a reservation for me. That's technically what you would consider like an autonomous web agent. It'll do a task for you, but what it does is underneath the hood, it's just like it's like a loop. It's nothing like it's not like you know, like us being sentient, we're making decisions, or I guess it is making decisions, but it's just like it's a codified loop. It's like a glorified loop and orchestration layer. It's not like truly agentic. And I think like our framing around that is just like that's mostly marketing. It's mostly marketing. And in terms of like how we integrate that into our product is just like what I think less focusing on the agent. Like our customers don't really care about like how agentic it is, like how autonomous. It just has to work well and reliably, and can be easy to use. And I think like in the age of AI, and I think just products in general, like there's actually a huge benefit. There's like a huge alpha over incumbents into just having great UX. Like if you've ever used like Salesforce or like Workday, it's like, or like actually more recently, like a concrete example is like Microsoft admin. I was trying to manage roles in Microsoft Teams, and it was like literally the worst experience I've ever had in my life. Like this was like a web app. I couldn't log in. I can't log out. Like I can't even switch accounts. I was like, I have to open incognito on like 3 different tabs to log into the right account. And it was just like such a frustrating experience. And I think like, especially with people using incumbent tools, that's a similar feeling. Like with AI, we can craft really beautiful UX. I think the term in the industry is like, seen it thrown around as like AI UX. And I think a lot of it is still being discovered and developed for different use cases. Like initially it's just chat. I think it's evolved a little bit past chat. There's like different cool patterns you could do, but I think fundamentally, like how people interact with software is going to change, and like in order to kind of facilitate that change and be successful, you have to have great UX.
Yeah, the shocking thing from what you said there is that Momentic is a Microsoft Teams company.
We have some customers on Teams. Most of our customers are on Slack. I can't imagine why anyone would use Teams though. Like it's such bad software. I don't think it's bad software. Like I think it's hard. It's a cool piece of software, but like the user experience is absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Nikhil, I'm curious about like sort of the similar, but like about function calling. I mean, function calling is probably a very important part of Vapi. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Mm-hmm. Sure. And I guess this also touches into things that you expect would get better and haven't as much. Like function calling from the time that GPT-4 was launched, I don't know if it's that much better. Like it's like the reliability, like maybe it's like, we're in the range where if it goes from like 90% to 92% reliability, it's just hard to tell that difference until like that's like it's a 99. Like kind of to Wei-Wei's point, like I don't know how much agency you get from just like loops, but like being able to call functions and like execute things in the world, like move things around and get feedback on that, is pretty powerful. And going to be the kind of the bedrock of, I think, the Asian economy in some ways. So very curious to see what people are going to come up with to make these models like more reliable at function calling. I mean, I think the current bet, from what I can tell, is just like make the models bigger. As they get smarter, the function calling gets better. Yeah, I guess like maybe that's it. But like really hoping for more reliable function calling. That is kind of the current biggest barrier to a lot of economic value getting unlocked. And
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'd love to hear you talk about this. You know, one of the biggest, at least from what I understand, one of the biggest things holding voice agents back is just latency, which is kind of like, let's say, not an AI problem per se.
sure.
Is that like sort of the biggest area where you guys invest? How how do you think about that? And yeah.
Kind of funny. I think we go from the periods of like, oh, latency is solved to latency is not solved. And I think this is going to be a forever battle, because imagine like right now I ask you something and you don't know about it. Hey, like, can you tell me about like this thing that happened in like what happened in 1800? What was like the most important thing from 1800? You'll probably Google it, right? After I ask you, and then you get back to the answer, and then we chat about it. But like, imagine you're an AI, and then you're really fast. As I'm speaking, like I speak 1800. Can you tell me about 1800? And it's like the AI at that point is already like doing a Google search, or like has an index for the world, and like by the time you finish the sentence, it already has an answer prepared for that. So that's like the power, right, in terms of latency, where and how I think about like future architecture, like Grok and stuff, where the more intelligence you can pack in like speed, the experience just is going to be beyond what even humans experience from each other. But yeah, like in terms of where the world is at right now, it's like it's good. I think when you call about like people when you use Vapi in production, it's like it works. It's like fairly like I think the hit rate is like 70% of people can't tell it's a bot. Of course, like it's if they ask, it's like it'll say it's a bot. But yeah, like it's like the conversion, it's fairly human. You know, it's like for and if you're not looking to like check if it's a bot, it feels like a human. So the uncanny valley is like basically there in terms of Turing test for voice agents. Um, there's delays like when it comes to like, for example, Claude 3.5, it's pretty slow. That definitely you can feel it. GPT-4o, it's very fairly fast, like fairly human. Function calling adds a bit of delay because like I mean, here's another kind of interesting thing that contributes to latency, like the time between each token, because these are like next token predictors. So when you want to make a tool call, that's like 30 or 40 predictions. So imagine if each takes 30 seconds, that's 30 milliseconds. That adds up very quickly to like half a second. So yeah, latency is forever going to be a challenge, and the better the latency gets, we'll pack more and more into the conversation. But we're at the place where like latency is not an issue, reliability is. Like the models are not smart enough and stuff.
Yeah. Wei-Wei, are you spending more time on, let's say, latency versus reliability, or regular interfaces, or how, where are you investing time with Momentic?
We kind of go in 3 different phases. So like, yeah, the main ones being like, for testing specifically, it has to work. Reliability is paramount. So like in early iterations of a product, like early this year and like end of last year, like before we got into YC, we had a ton of interest. So like people were like, oh my God, AI testing, this is going to save me so much time. And they'll like onboard and we'll do some pilots, and like everyone would churn because it was like so stupid. And I think like we go through phases of like, all right, we're going to invest in reliability because this is like table stakes. Like it needs to work for like all these use cases. And like, that is, I would say, paramount, and still is our number one goal. But we've gotten to a point where we've been able to onboard, any companies from anywhere from like seed stage to like public companies with like no reliability problems. And now the next thing on the list is like our latency. Like developers want to get results fast. They want to iterate fast, like, as fast as like me typing in VS Code or something like that. I mean, like, I don't think we're not quite that fast, but like we're trying to get there, like with like, a lot of optimizations on like network and like caching and all that stuff. And then I think the third thing is specifically is like that is like one of the things we're making a big push on is UX. So like, how can we make the test building experience like super easy, super smooth? A lot of developers like, just keyboard typing. Like, how can we make that experience just like that, but without, delving into making you playwright scripts again, because that's exactly the thing we're trying to get away from. And I think we go through different phases depending on, I would say, like, depending on what customers yell at us in our support channels. And, like, just we're like iterating based on their feedback. So like, for example, like one specific thing we're working on is like a new editor that's going to be like super smooth and like a Notion-esque editing experience. But then we ran into a reliability issue where icons that are super small, like our AI can't find it and it doesn't have any labels on it. So it's just like gibberish to us. So like, that's like a reliability issue that we really need to fix. But it's like, it's also like a hard technical problem. Like how do you get AIs to understand SVG icons? Like,
well, I mean, speaking of, customers yelling at you, you both having been YC companies, one of the sort of perks of YC is, having like a customer base, especially as a DevTools company, there's a customer base right there for you to sell into. I'm curious, like, and especially for Nikhil, who's building, sort of AI voice agents for other presumably AI native companies. Do AI native? What do you make of this concept of AI native company? Is that real? And then, do they have different? Is the buying conversation with them different? Do they evaluate tools differently? Are they more skeptical or less skeptical? Knowing how, let's say, non-deterministic, the output can be at times, especially for infrastructure that they're relying on.
I don't think it's a good question. And nothing comes to mind top of mind immediately for me. But you know what, the thing came to my mind was like when I'm talking to my like grandma, grandpa, like it's like the thing that's great is like they don't know the startups, they don't know like they don't. It's like they're just talking to me as a human. So I think about it in some ways, businesses are also better that way, which is like I'm selling you a service. It doesn't matter if it's an AI service or not service. Like it's like I'm selling you a service and like it should just work. And yeah, I guess like people do give you better affordances because they know it's an AI, and like a lot of issues, for example, with prompting, like our customers bring the prompt, right? And they're responsible for that. So we help with them with it, but like it's kind of annoying for them and us to like it takes time to get that to work. But yeah, ultimately I haven't like in any way visually felt like AI native means something other than like, yeah, we're selling a service and we are using new tools like AIs to do it.
Yeah. I actually think, in a way that's like the sort of like a refreshing perspective. It's like, hey, like, putting the sort of AI pieces aside, like we're building SaaS, software as a service, and it's like it should work.
Yeah. I don't know if Wei-Wei has any different thoughts.
No, I think I totally agree. Like, I would say people who label themselves as AI native it's purely marketing. Like, I don't know what it means to be AI native. Like, doesn't mean like we're AI. It's like our software uses AI in a new way to make a tool better and more efficient than existing tools. But like, yeah, I 100% agree with Nikhil. Like, there's no like, it's fundamental, like what value are you providing, like regardless if you're AI native or not. And like maybe, and I think we're like kind of still in like the AI hype cycle. So like being AI native is helpful for marketing and posting on LinkedIn and Twitter. it's not it's not part of like the identity of the company. Like it's probably, maybe you'll pitch it in, in your VC deck, like we're like, you just have AI in every single slide as the title slide. And like, maybe you'll get like raise a billions of dollars, but like, it's like for customers, it doesn't really, it's not like a differentiator. It just needs to work.
Nice. A little cynical about the fundraising environment, but I'll let that slide. Well, kind of on this topic of SaaS, one of the sort of like evergreen topics in SaaS is kind of like build versus buy, and there was always this, the sort of like, maybe 3 to 5 years ago, SaaS was always like, hey, it's always cheaper to buy, and you should never try to build it for yourself, because like you have no idea how hard it is, and then like you're gonna have to maintain it. And then now it feels like kind of like everyone getting super price sensitive, so there's the rise of like all-in-one software, but then also like hey, like let's use Retool and build this, let's use Airtable and build this. We don't need like separate SaaS. We could either use an all-in-one or sort of like a Lego tool set to build it. When how are folks thinking about build versus buy when it comes to like AI tools specifically? Like, hey, is the thought process, is part of the core part of the thought process like, how hard would this be to build myself with with Anthropic OpenAI versus to buy is that kind of like a new dynamic? Just curious, like if this conversation has come up a lot or not.
I think we've had some. So I think like in the testing world, the status quo is you build it yourself with some like popular open source tool like Cypress or Playwright, who's like Playwright sponsored by Microsoft. There's a big team working on it. It's a really great piece of powerful software. And like we've seen some customers try to leverage. They're like, hey, we could probably do this ourselves, plug in Playwright, plug in GPT-4o. Like I could probably generate something. Like it never really ends super well. It's like, it never gets past the stage of like hobby projects. And then they're like, do I want to spend, a couple months optimizing this, or should I, buy Momentic or like try out Momentic? And I think, at developers, especially, like we sell most primarily to developers. Developers we think we can build everything. I think that's like almost like that's why it's like, it's notoriously hard to sell dev tools. Like everyone thinks they could build it themselves until they try it, and then they can't. So like a lot of like our pipeline is like, they'll come to us, they'll be like, hey, like, they see a demo, they're like, oh yeah, I could definitely do this myself, and then they'll come back like 2 months later. It's like, yeah, we tried, we went back to Playwright. Now like we have to factor in 40% more time in our cycles to maintain the Playwright scripts, and we don't want to do that anymore. So like, instead of just like trying to convince them, we kind of just let them figure it out themselves, and then like they inevitably come back with like, yeah, this doesn't work super well, we have an open mind again. But like, I think it's hard to convince them on the first time, because especially if they haven't had experience trying to build it out themselves first. But I do think like specifically for developers, there's definitely like a, build it yourself. I want to build my own design system. I don't want to use Material UI. I don't want to use Bootstrap.
Yeah. Nikhil, I'm interested specifically for you guys, because there's been a little bit more talk about like this question of like gross margin. Like, hey, these AI companies, like, do they have software software margins? And presumably, if I'm building, building on top of Vapi, that might go into my my cost of goods sold. Is the topic of gross margin like a big one that comes up, for you?
It does, and I think that's why. So we have the pay-as-you-go self-serve, and that's works well. But for enterprise, especially when folks are to scale up, they have to be sensitive about their COGS. And obviously, I guess maintaining this whole architecture infrastructure, they know, is a lot of work, and like if they don't pay Vapi, they're going to be paying engineers to maintain that, and like also they're going to be paying AWS or whatever compute they're using to run that. Whereas, yeah, we just get a managed service with us. And I think like managed services, like whenever it comes to like complex managed services, like database is a good example. Like, yes, a lot of people can use Postgres, which is fine. But Cockroach is a great company. Mongo is a huge company. When it comes to what's a more recent example, I guess, of managed service? Nginx, even F5 is doing pretty well. Cybersecurity, same thing. So Datadog is obviously a great example. So for us, yeah, we're very sensitive to the conversation, and we've never had an issue making it work, like where it's a win-win. And like people who use us, like the ultimately it's an ROI calculation as well, where the use cases that are available right now to be unlocked by voice agents are you want to have like an exponential impact, on them. Like you're paying like they're paying you less than 10% of like how much money they're making on you. So which is of course like some use cases do fall outside that. Like for example, if you wanted to have a always on assistant, like it's like a human 24-hour listening to you, that's just not like that won't fit that. It's just too expensive to transcribe in the entire day. And no one is going to pay like the amount that it will take to do that. So there's use cases that are just outside the scope of that, but like currently, yeah, it's the same old. People think about those gross margins. People are sensitive to it. The businesses that succeed are who have a value that they know they can charge for.
Yeah. Presumably, yeah, you're saving like the end customer, end user on headcount, on money, and then that savings gets passed along.
Yeah.
Yeah. We touched on this a little bit. We've been talking about marketing. Wei-Wei's been poo-pooing marketing a little bit. Kind of symptom. Sort of a derangement of the early stage founder. Talking bad about marketing. Can you? I'd love to like maybe reframe like sort of a marketing conversation within this kind of notion of like developer experience. Maybe Wei-Wei's first response is developer experience is just marketing. But how do you guys think about developer experience today? Is it more important than ever? Because many of the tools are, sort of sharing underlying infrastructure, or underlying tool set, and therefore, like, the end user experience like becomes, more important than ever, both in terms of like interfaces, product quality, as we talked about, but then also sort of like brand halo, marketing affinity. Are there companies that you guys like think like are doing developer experience in the age of sort of like AI tools, doing that really well? I loved, developers experience kind of was a big topic. I'm not sure if it's as important today, but I'd love to hear like how you guys are approaching it. I don't know how you think about it. Nikhil, maybe you want to kick it off.
The same thing that we talked about, like we're providing service, and like all the principles of businesses still hold. I personally am not sure. I think there's been many times people have talked about like UI matters so much more. Like now is the time like UI will matter, and it hasn't panned out that way. So I'm not sure about that. I think developers do matter a lot. I think like Twilio is a good example of a company that like won because they were like, yeah, we don't care about selling to like CPOs or CIOs. We're going to sell to developers, and that was very contradictory. Contradictory at that point, and people didn't believe them that would pan out, but it did. So, and now I think it's like conventional wisdom, like, hey, we should build a great API or that people can use. So I don't know. I'm like half and half on either. I could argue both sides of it. For us, we just want to make something that's like super easy to use. I think kind of as Vivi was mentioning, like it's joyful, delightful, but also not over-indexed on like oh, like pixel perfect. It's like people want features like as well, and like people want like functionality. People also want like data security, which again is a more of an enterprise thing, right? But like it still matters a lot. So mix. That's how I think about it. Just like a mix of both of the perspectives.
Yeah. Wei-Wei, you want to jump in?
I would say for us, we do care quite a lot about developer experience. Like they're the end users. Like they're the ones that kind of feel the pain most acutely. Like an engineering director or us is not sitting there writing playwright tests. It's their engineers doing it. So like we like a big push on like reliability, latency, and like good UX is super important to us because like they're fundamentally our end users. And like as developers ourselves, like we're like the one of the most aware of that. So like we try to build the ultimate, like the best experience we can for our customers and our users just through like great UX. And it just has to be phenomenal, and like anything lower is not acceptable.
Nice.
To justify that switching cost, like that Nikhil mentioned before, like there is like, especially for teams that have test automation, which is very common. Like say you probably a lot of teams spin up a small suite of Cypress or playwright tests. It's like you have to justify that switching cost. Like the experience has to be like a 10x improvement. At least it just has to be phenomenal.
Yeah. Can you talk more about sort of like sort of competing against incumbents, and are they incorporating? They're there's a lot of marketing around them also launching AI powered features, and how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, in the testing world, like I would say the really big incumbent, there's like mainly two big names. One is SmartBear and one is Tricentis, and both are like huge enterprise testing software that've been around for like 20 years. And how we've seen them get into more modern testing tools is through like acquisitions. So they bought SmartBear bought Reflect. I think Tricentis bought another company called Testim. They're primarily like just like doing acquisitions to like get into that space. And then like I would say like that's kind of like the current state of like big incumbents. Other than that, like I don't think there has been a focus on like developer experience, because like fundamentally their customer base are QA teams. Like they're non-technical folks. Like if you're an engineer, SmartBear and Tricentis are not in your vocabulary. It's not a thing that exists.
Yeah. Nikhil, are any big incumbents building voice AI APIs?
I think all of them are. It's I guess like depending on how you think about it, like Google already like has Dialogflow, which is like a voice API, last gen a bit, but like yeah, like I think AWS, they all seem to be in like Gen AI voice. Even this is kind of funny actually. We went to a industry conference where all the call center software companies were, and it was just AI was the talk of the town. Everyone is AI first. So yeah, I think at least like in the industry, our industry, it seems like everyone has woken up to AI. What the way we think about ourselves is just like move fast, we're focused. We have like we are betting on like AI moving really fast and like us moving with it. And like I think that's really all you can do is like incumbents will be like 6 months slower, and that 6 months might be the difference between start surviving or not, right? Like that 6 months is enough to like close a lot of contracts and get them launched and like start moving. So it'll be tricky. AI is not so far hasn't been as disruptive of a change as something like previous, like when personal computing came in. was, I think it's incumbents can rapidly launch products that are AI first, and they'll be fine. We'll see. Like we were talking about Teams, right? Like, Teams versus Slack. Like Teams is like has like 3x user base to Slack. Way more people use Teams in the world than Slack. So Slack, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. Incumbents have a huge advantage.
Yeah, but I guess in a way too, you're enabling, let's say like a Zendesk to add this feature, to their product by, integrating with you guys, right?
Exactly.
There's a positive,
That's what we think is like. There's going to be a abundance of like everyone basically launching more voice features, like voice products, and they'll need something to power it, which it can be AWS, but they might choose someone like us because we have the latest gen of everything.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we're coming up on time. I wanted to kind of like maybe give you guys like the last word on some audacious futurist-ish statement on the future of software development, software engineering. Feel free to state the most outrageous or audacious thing you can think of, or just something that you might actually believe. Whatever tickles your fancy. Yeah, Nikhil, you wanna give it a shot?
Oh, I wish you had told me this question before, so I could have prepared.
Sorry.
Okay, let's see. I buy the argument that AI, it's gonna be really powerful very soon. I do not understand how the world is going to accommodate that. I think we'll have trillionaires before we ever solve like poverty, and this AI is gonna like really like show the face of humanity. Like it's gonna be tough. It's gonna get really hard, I think, before it gets better. And of course, I think we'll also solve like some important cancer. I think we'll like solve a lot of problems with this technology. But like it's the world is headed to a place that's gonna be very interesting, I guess, but also scary.
Nice. A little dark was good. Yeah, wait, jump in.
My spicy take is on specifically related to like engineering and QA, which is like the space I primarily work in. Is I think the QA function as we see it today, with manual QA, also like a huge percentage of like QA is outsourced, and there's also like more technical roles like software developers and tests that like also make a lot of money. I do believe that those roles shouldn't exist in the next 5 to 10 years. These are things that AI can automate enough of to be able to enable regular engineers who are building the features to do this. Like you no longer have to dedicate a whole headcount just to write Selenium. Like I think that's like mind blowing. And I think that's just going to be a big shift. Like everyone's going to be more efficient. Organizations are going to be leaner, and as a result, move faster and be cheaper too. I think it's just like a win-win, except if your role is in QA.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Good stuff. I like the caveat at the end. Cool. Well, guys, I think there's a lot of great stuff. I mean, I really appreciate you guys sharing your insights and experiences from building, on the front lines of AI and DevTools. So thanks so much. And yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
For sure. And yeah, we'll share, where these guys can find you and more your companies and individually after this. So cool. Thanks, guys.